do that is they're purposely looking to reinforce, good morning, stereotypes. And they're taking whatever stereotype people have and then multiplying it by 10 and then making it weird. Okay, so what were the guys that were singing wearing? That boy needs therapy. What were they wearing? Good morning. They were wearing, okay, maybe put this part of it back up here again. Okay, so we start out. Who is he supposed to be? Who does he look like? Come on. Yes, he's an old white man. Good. Yeah, he looks like FDR. He looks like an old president. Does he look like he has high status and high power? Yes. Look at the way he's looking at the person he's looking at. You don't even know anything. If you haven't watched the beginning part of this, you don't know anything about it. But just look, is he looking like he's looking down on somebody? Yes, so you can just see the way that this person is playing this role has the attitude of this role. He's the principal of the particular school that this little child is.
Higher public school system. Mr. Kirk, I'm the finish.
I have no idea. Okay. Is that a guy dressed up as an old lady or just an old lady? Yeah. Okay, so let's skip forward a little bit. Okay. No idea. Okay, this metaphor. Who's this gentleman with the turtleneck and the black trousers? Psychiatrist. This is a prototypical psychiatrist in the 1950s. In the 1950s, a psychiatrist would wear a comfortable sweater, relaxed pants, and have the patient sit down on a comfy couch. So, tell me about your mother, okay? And look at the attitude of the person who's pointing at the couch. Is it a high attitude or low attitude? I realize I'm standing the same way. I have that Tyrannosaurus Rex stance. The easy hide thumbs. My kids laugh at that. Okay, but so I don't know why I always do this, but I see there's tons of pictures of me, and I'm like, probably because my biceps are so huge, I can't bend my arms. No, I don't know what it is. Okay, so, but again, look at his stance. How is he looking like he's in control? The guy with the sweater, the turtleneck on? Is he making eye contact with the patient, or is he just talking to the patient as if the patient's not there? Look where he's looking.
Needs therapy. Psychosomatic. That boy needs therapy. Psychosomatic. That boy needs
Oh wait, I'm going to get busted. Okay, so there you go. He's not looking at him. He's not looking at him. He's like, lay down on the couch. Okay? And what's interesting about this is that I can skip forward a little bit. Is this a person wearing blackface or a black person? What's with the hair? It's definitely not the right hair. So it's someone who is dressing up like someone who's wearing blackface. So they purposely are trying to find things. Okay, so for Southern California people, you might not know what blackface is. Okay, what is blackface? What is it? But how do they act? That's the more important part than just painting your face dark. Like, so what does that mean for people not from the South? Super hyperbole black. So basically, if you look at any movies from the 1950s of how black people are portrayed, okay, like that. So, and they make sure that their lips are over exaggerated, and the black paint is super, super dark, but their hands are still white. And it's, oh, save it. Did it spill? A lot? Nah, good, okay. So now, into the spilliest class. Okay. You did a great job cleaning up. I didn't get yelled at, so thank you. Okay. No, you're good. You're good. Okay. Oh, it's just water. Is it not just water? Is it like vodka or something? Okay. Okay. Water is not a problem. Okay. Don't worry about the water. Water will evaporate. Just goes after your notebook. Okay. Yeah, or your purse or anything else. Okay. And nobody down below worry about pickling. Okay. Anyway, so the reason why back during slavery, white people would dress up and pretend to be black people. And it was a way of mocking black people as entertainment. So, anybody hear about a congressman recently in the medical school yearbook? There's a couple medical schools that are from the South where it was traditional to have blackface parties. Traditional. Good old times. And so when you hear that, we heard it on the news. They're talking about that, oh, they have pictures of this congressperson dressing up in blackface. And my kids are like, what's that? So we had the whole giant explanation of it. It's interesting because this is a medical school. Why would they dress up as blackface? You'd think that the more educated you get, the less stereotypes and less racist you get. But is that true? Not necessarily, because if we shift back, we go back to our groups over here. We talked about this last time, in-group versus out-group, a little bit. That if everybody's doing something, does it seem like it's okay? Yes. There was a school in, I want to say Michigan. That was in Michigan, was it? It was up a north Midwest area where they posed for a yearbook photo and they all did the Hitler salute. And it started kind of as a joke, because the joke was, I bet if we do this, hey, let's get the black kid to do it too, because he was standing there, and that it'll be funny that that they actually let us do it. But why are you grimacing? Well, it is rude, but we mentioned high school kids, right? Yeah. Yeah, that's a high school kid. But high school kids will do things to push the envelope, but do they realize the severity of what that statement means to somebody else? Sometimes not. And that's maybe if you're in an isolated community and you're doing something and you don't realize what you're doing is extremely offensive. Are you purposely being overtly racist and horrible? Not necessarily, because you're just doing stuff without knowing exactly what you're doing. Another congressman called a group of folks that were rioting a bunch of, what was the word he used? Thugs. Was it thugs? Yeah. What's a thug? What's a thug? Yeah, okay, what else? So, if you listen to Tupac, what's a thug? Come on. In Western European society, a thug is a ruffian ne'er-do-well. Basically, it's someone who causes problems because they like causing problems. They're thugs. It's someone who bullies their way around the world. But if you listen to Tupac, a thug is someone who has got nothing left to lose. Nothing left to lose. So if I'm looking at this situation and seeing a bunch of people that are rioting over something, and I said they're a bunch of thugs, how am I viewing those people from my perspective? No, not that they're lower than me, but they're a bunch of bad people who are doing things because they enjoy doing bad things. How does a person, if you're from Tupac culture, how do you understand that? What did the senator just say about us? No, that you guys had got nothing left to lose. So he's saying how low you are. So depending on whose ears hear it. That's why we're having a big discussion about, should we bother doing all this equity training seminar stuff? It's a really interesting discussion because one of our professors says, oh, it's just a waste of time. We have so much content to cover. Why do we spend so much time trying to talk about race and ethnicity and everything else? Person's white. How come my people don't want to talk about race and ethnicity and everything else? It's not a problem for me. But if you look around, most people are not white. And because most people aren't white, is it a really big problem around, especially in San Diego? Yes. And that when you say, oh, there's no problem, going back, we are actually bumping into your attitude. A lot of racist behavior comes from attitude. A lot of racist behavior comes from your attitude. So you also automatically feel something. As soon as you feel it, it changes your behavior. And then your thoughts just follow along happily. Okay, so this is something that's really interesting. What if... Did we talk about microaggressions in here? Okay, good. So, you are constantly pushing attitude that you have no idea that you're pushing attitude on someone. Okay, if you have a uncertainty or fear about a certain ethnicity or race or a gender, okay, what happens is that when you interact with them, does your behavior change? Yes. Okay, and the reason why it changes because your emotion, your amygdala, that little part of your brain that tells you to watch out, when you're around someone that you're not comfortable with, your amygdala becomes different. Your eyes change. Your eyeballs change when you're around someone you're uncomfortable with. You look at them with suspicion. So we talk about things called microaggressions. Microaggressions are where you do stuff, like if Devin sits next to me on the bus, I scoot over a little bit and say, excuse me. Why would I scoot over a little bit? He's different than I am. Because he's different, my brain goes, I'm uncomfortable. Let me adjust myself to make myself more comfortable. Okay, I feel better. Now, if you were the person shifting, are you shifting because, ew, ha, whoa? No, you're shifting because you feel uncomfortable. If Devin sits there and he sits down next to me and I shift over a little bit, what does that signal to him? That I feel uncomfortable. And then, so each person comes into the situation with their own attitude. And it's interesting to see, how do we break this? How do we stop this attitude? How do we stop these little microaggressions? You can't just go in and, I can't just go give Devin a hug because I feel uncomfortable. Because then there's a whole other layer of uncomfortableness in there. And so, one of the ways that you can break attitude is put someone in what's called cognitive dissonance. This term is going to sneak into the class a lot in the next couple weeks, because we are going to be talking about yourself coming up next week. Yourself, you. And what you have to realize is that a lot of you exists in your thoughts. A lot of you exists in your thoughts, not in your emotions. So there's a lot of you that you are not aware of. There's a lot of you that you are not in control of, sadly. A lot of you, good morning, a lot of yourself lives in this attitudinal world. Okay, so let me explain cognitive dissonance. What does the word dissonance mean? Let me go back here and I can find a dissonance very quickly. Oh yeah. Name that song. Don't play high notes. Okay, Dan! Okay, dissonance. Is everybody playing the same song? Yes, actually their timing was excellent. For fifth graders, that timing is great. What's missing? Frequency. In order to play a note in tune, you have to learn how to use these muscles right here. No matter what instrument it is, it's these little side muscles that you use to control the pitch of whatever you're playing. I play saxophone, oh, nice work. What do you play? What kind? Oh, okay. Okay, I have an alto now. I played tenor my whole career, and I got an alto now because it takes up less space in my house. I really want to get a baritone. And just so I can play like a bunch of 80s rap. They loved the baritone sax back then. Okay, sorry. So if you listen to my Run DMC collection, there's a lot of really cool baritone sax. Anyway, so trying to think of one of the songs. Okay, so it's awesome. So what happens is dissonance is where you have two people playing the same note, but they're not playing the same note. There's dissonance. They're both off a little bit. So what is cognitive dissonance? Your thoughts don't match. This is a problem when your thoughts get in conflict with each other. This happens a lot with attitude. You're saying, I should be afraid. But the guy's nice. So how do you choose which behavior to act on? That's cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is where you have this emotion, but then your thoughts say, no. I have a really good example of cognitive dissonance. A good friend of mine, actually he's passed away at this point, but he was still alive a few years ago. Let me put it up on Google Images. Bought this car. XKE 1965. Okay? He bought a car that looks just like this. Oh, it's an amazing car. Let me just copy this really quickly. Whoa, sorry. I just want to copy the damn picture. I tried to right click. There we go. So on a normal tablet, 2-finger tap means right click. On this one, sometimes it means right click, sometimes it doesn't. You're right. Yeah, it's probably that. Okay, so I'm going to put this car here. Okay. And I just want to kind of pay attention. This is actually, his was black, but it was pretty much the same idea of this. This is actually an aluminum one. They made a bunch of these aluminum. They're called the light body model. And the light body models are very cool. Back in 1960s, when this thing was made, they first started making the 64, 65, they would go almost 200 miles an hour. They're beautiful cars. V12, each cylinder was about like this big. It only had less than a 3-liter displacement, but it was an engineering marvel, except it was a piece of crap. Just see the wheels? Okay, the way you put the wheels on is you have a wooden hammer in the trunk and you bang on that little thing and it unspins, and that's how you put the wheels on. And you bang it tight. They're called knockoff wheels. Okay, little wooden hammer so you don't dent the chrome. If you hit a curb or something, you can't just glue a weight on it to balance the wheel. How do you balance the wheel? Like a bicycle spoke. You turn and adjust each one of those spokes, and it keeps the wheel straight, like a motorcycle wheel. Had four-wheel drum brakes. 200 miles an hour, four-wheel drum brakes. Good luck with that. Not many of these survived for that reason. Plus, they kept braking all the time. But they were voted as one of the most beautiful cars ever made. And they are really gorgeous. But there's a problem. If you flip it upside down, what does it look like? You just drew a penis. I can draw it without. Okay, sorry. Okay, so I'll get rid of the penis and then you can just see the car. Okay, so now, it's a giant phallic symbol. It's a giant symbol of manliness and power. A penis. Okay, moving on. So, funny. Okay. And people liked it because of the really long hood that it had. Okay, sorry, I stopped. Okay. Okay, so one of my professors, Dr. Radlow, bought this thing. He bought a black one. He paid $78,000 for it back in the mid-'80s. Okay, one of them recently sold at auction for a couple mil. They're really rare. They're really beautiful. They're super, super sought after. There's a lady in Hamul that actually has one with a Chevy V8 in the Corvette, basically. You take the Corvette off and then you put the Corvette parts inside. Then you have a car that's beautiful and goes and stops and is a Chevy. So you can buy parts for it at Pep Boys. Anyway, so he spent a grip ton of money on this thing because he saw one as a kid and he had this attitude ever since he was a child. I want one of those. When he became a successful college professor at San Diego State, he's like, I can afford one of these now. He bought one. He was so excited. After he bought it, it was almost restored perfectly. He started driving it back and forth to work. It's not a daily driver car. Okay, it's a race car. It's not a daily driver car. So he'd only drive it once a week or twice a week, and as a result, he had to have the valves redone all the time. Every time he had to have the valves redone, it was like 10 grand because he had to ship stuff off to places to get it done. It was just a money pit. He kept it in his garage. He loved it. Money pit. His wife finally said, you're spending thousands and thousands of dollars on this every couple months. You need to just cut bait on this thing or just leave it in the garage and don't try to drive it. Why did he want to drive it? Well, yeah, he loved it. What's the point of having a beautiful car if you can't drive it? And that's so he kept driving it and breaking it and driving it and breaking it. And he wasn't driving it like hard. He was just driving it from Del Cerro to San Diego State. It's not exactly like, going through Ramona. Okay. So, again, his wife came up with this ultimatum. And this is my favorite line. He goes, do you want me to make that choice? And then he's telling this us in front of our class, and I laugh because he goes, I thought for a minute. Well, because he has dumped so much energy into this car, and has it rewarded him? No! If he steps back and gets out his attitudinal self and looks at this car, it sucks. But that's cognitive dissonance. Why? It sucks as a car, but I really like it. It sucks, I really like it. So all of a sudden he has cognitive dissonance. These two woodwind players at a school band trying to play the same note. So how do you resolve it? How do you resolve this cognitive dissonance? No, but that's too logical. Denial. I love the car, it's worth it. Ta-da! What happened to my cognitive dissonance? It disappeared. Gone. I do not have a drinking problem. You've lost your job, you have 3 DUIs, and your family won't talk to you. That's their problem. Sad if you hear that in your family, because is that... So if you have a substance problem, you have a problem. It's called a substance problem. But what happens, a lot of people are in a cognitive dissonance. I am not one of those people. So therefore your attitude says, no, it's not me. When I had my eyeballs lasered, one of my good friends, he was the soccer coach of my son's soccer team, his kids go to my kid's school. I had my eyeballs lasered, and I got a phone call from him. He never has called me outside of the soccer season. And he goes, hey, did they give you any pain medication for your eyeballs? You got a problem, sir. And I'm like, no, I didn't take it. And he goes, oh, sometimes I get really bad headaches. Like, yes, you do, sir. I talked to his wife. I'm like, have you noticed anything? Because, why would he start soliciting me for leftover Vicodin? Probably has a closet opiate addiction that he's not sharing with too many people. And it's crazy, but how come he's like, yeah, I got really bad headache. Pow. Denial. And so is denial solve the cognitive dissonance? No. It just rejects the fact that it exists. We can use another example of this, which is better than the old car, is that if you're in a relationship that sucks, terrible, person is a mean, angry, ugly person, inside, not outside. They might be shiny objects on the outside, so you keep looking at them going, yeah, I like that. Then you talk to you, shh. It's like the car. Why do people stick with bad relationships? Because they're your kids and you can't kick them out. No. Why do they stick with bad relationships? Well, in fact, being alone would be better than being with the person. It's the cognitive dissonance. I have put a lot of energy into this relationship. And a lot of times when someone gets abused by their partner, they go, I need to change. They're being abused. Why do they say, I need to change? They blame themselves for being abused. And that's actually, we're going to teach you how to be a good bully today. Verizon received my payment. Okay, we're going to teach you how to be a good bully. Well, yeah, if you want to bully someone, you've got to learn how to do it correctly. You can also use the same technology to form a cult and take over your government. Okay, moving on. So, but first we have to learn about cognitive dissonance, because what's the other way? What's the other way of dealing with cognitive dissonance? Yeah, well, so you have to, what's the way to get out of this cognitive dissonance? You have to become aware of your cognitive dissonance. The first step of recovery is you have to see it. You have to be conscious of your ability. People, in the movies, they do this all the time. They say, yes, I'm an alcoholic, and then the person's life is perfect afterwards. Sorry, that's just the first step. It's not the recovery. But we have a really good friend who's suffering from alcoholism pretty badly right now. They black out when they drink. If you ever black out from alcohol, that's different than getting drunk and memories being fuzzy. It's like the difference in a blackout and having fuzzy memories is when you black out, you literally do not form memories while you're under the influence at all. You wake up in the morning and people are showing you pictures of what happened and you're like, yeah, there's no recollection. Change drugs now if that's happening to you in college. No, I'm very serious. Because if you black out after drinking 2 or 3 drinks, you have a very serious alcohol addiction in your future. And it's very important to not drink if you black out. And the reason is because think about this. If you have a drink, my friend Christy, this is awesome. She's super stressed about flying. She works as an accountant for lots of these really big companies, and she telecommutes. She does most of her work at home, but every so often she has to go to sites to do accounting things, moving column A to column B in person for some reason. Anyway, but she had to fly to Chicago. And so she's flying to Chicago. Oh, no, it's not Chicago. She had Detroit. She's in Detroit. And she's going to Detroit, and she's super nervous about flying because she's scary about flying. She has a little son at home who is young, leaving son with dad. She's paranoid dad's going to forget son somewhere. And so doctor prescribed her Xanax so she could take a little pill to take her anxiety away so that she could get through the flight. Evidently, she took one when she was getting ready to get on the plane and forgot that she took one when she was getting ready to get on the plane because she was nervous. And so she's sitting there and says, "Oh, I should take my pill," and takes the pill. Evidently, after that, she blacked out. She was offering the pills to other people on the airplane. She called her husband. This is pre-iPhone. I'm lost. I can't find the hotel. He's like, "Okay, where are you?" And she reads the street, and so he looks up on his Google Maps on his computer at home and sees in like southeast Detroit. And she goes, "I just hit something with the rental car." So she's in a rental car, damaged in southeast Detroit, stoned out of her mind. She goes, "Oh, I'll figure it out," and hangs up. He's like, "Ah!" panicking. She somehow manages to find her way to the hotel. Some actually people came to her rescue and helped her. And she has no memory of the entire event because she blacked out. She had that double dose of Xanax. She may probably have had a drink on the plane as well. Because if you don't realize that what's going on, are you more likely to drink more? Yeah, so that's why alcoholism, if you black out, increases the risk of more alcoholism, because if you have I'm just going to have a drink, and then your consciousness goes away, what happens to the amount of drinking? You don't know how much you drank. You don't know how much you're going to drink. You can't control it once you black out. Anyway, but the idea is becoming aware, mindfulness. As soon as you start becoming aware of your cognitive dissonance, that's the way you can start dealing with your cognitive dissonance. So why have the stupid patient lie on a couch? So tell me about your mother. I don't like my mom. Why not? I don't know. I didn't say that. Deny it. Okay, and so as a result, by talking with somebody in a comfortable, relaxed setting, are you allowed to have these discussions about cognitive dissonance? So why have this Equity Training Institute? Why have a bunch of faculty together talking about issues of race? We're not going to solve the problems of racism. But what happens is you start becoming mindful of the problems of racism. It was the faculty that was upset goes, "We didn't learn anything in this training." Well, and the reason they didn't learn it is because they didn't learn anything is because the point is not to gain. I'm going to learn some strategies to mitigate racism in my classroom. That's not the point of the training. What's the point of the training? To focus inward about what you do and say and how it affects the people around you. Understand why wearing blackface is extremely offensive to some people. Understanding why, what's the guy Kramer from the Seinfeld show, Michael Richards? When he starts using the N-word in a comedy routine versus Chris Rock using the N-word in a comedy routine. Why is that different? You have to understand the audience in which you're talking to. You have to know the audience that you're talking to. And in one audience you hear that and people laugh and think it's funny. Another audience you hear that and it's not funny at all. It's extremely offensive. Because when you have these attitudes, you don't realize how strong they are. So there's two ways to break someone's attitude. There's two ways to do it. Okay? What if you yell at them? Why does it make it worse? But if you attack somebody's emotions, their emotional filters come up and they start arguing back. That's where denial comes from. The more you confront, the more you argue, the more you yell at, not working. It was great back in what, 1991, 92? No, before that. Probably 88 or 89. There was a Ku Klux Klan was trying to rally in Vermont. Vermont is a 90% white state. There's not a lot of ethnic minority there because it's cold and miserable. So a lot of people go there and go, "Bleh," and leave. Okay? So because it's a mostly white state, the Ku Klux Klan tried to have a rally. Right? So what if a bunch of people came out and started fighting with them? What does that do for the people in the Klan? Well, it makes the people rally together. And if anybody was... So, Berkeley. What happened last summer? 2 summers ago? 2 summers ago. The alt-right, the Ku Klux Klan and the alt-right party had a big march up at Berkeley. They were blocked from talking on campus due to their racist ideas. And so they rallied a bunch of people together to come and do a march to the streets of Berkeley to protest the fact that they weren't able to speak on campus. Okay? So a group of anti-white nationalists, anti-alt-righters, also went. And what happened? A 3 or 4 day fight occurred. I don't know exactly how long it lasted, but it was at least 3 or 4 days. And so, of course, a pile of reporters came. And all the news trucks came. And everybody watched these two sides battle it out. Did the same thing happen down south? Yeah, I forget. I think it was in Selma, where the white supremacists drove over a bunch of people. Yeah, that happened as a. And then there was another one in Los Angeles, just north of Long Beach, just right south of LA. That happened this last summer. And what happens is that if you come and fight back, what does it do to people's attitudes? You get defensive and people group together more. It makes people group together more. And this is what was great. This Ku Klux Klan had a rally in Vermont. Nobody showed up. Nobody. Here's the guys in the robes. Yay, we're the alt-right. No police, no fire trucks, no reporters, no people. Well, what does that show the group? You got nothing. You're in the wrong town. So if you fight back against them, what it does is it might change one or two of people's opinions, but what does it do to the group? It forms, okay, so here is our normal population, okay? Here is the in-group. Here is the out-group. If you notice, there are people in both groups that are normal. There are people that are in both groups that are normal. So if I have someone, here's the normal for the alt-right, here's the normal for the person who thinks the alt-right is completely stupid. Most people, what do they think? They don't care. And the biggest problem with our younger generations is, actually, the Generation I generation, during the Obama administration, anybody know the biggest problem young people had? Apathy. They didn't care. Healthcare for all. Who cares? Who cares? Who cares? Who cares? Your generation, however, is doing something slightly different. You young people are actually voting. The highest young people voting turnout ever was in November for the interim election. Which is, yeah. What did a bunch of people do after Sandy Hook? Not Sandy Hook. What was the one in Florida? Parkland. Protest. And they like march to Congress. And they're like writing letters to Congress. And they're like organizing walkouts. Like a couple hundred kids walked out of class at Patrick Henry. And these kids actually care. And they're actually in a movement. Not just to get out of class, but they're actually in a movement. Our neighbor's kid was the only person that walked out of Lewis Middle School. I know. She's like, I'm by myself, but I'm doing it. Yeah. And I apologize for my language, but she also wore a T-shirt to school that said, "It's my pussy." She's in 8th grade now. She's a little political activist. Her grandma was a attorney general. No, a judge general, which is like the top judge in Carolina. I don't remember. I don't know if it's a spicy barbecue sauce or the sour barbecue sauce. So I can't remember. South Carolina is more mustardy, right? You got to know your states by the barbecue sauce. Okay, sorry. Anyway, I think it's South Carolina. Anyway, and her two aunts are both defense attorneys. Her mom is a professor of biopsych at UCSD. Why do you think she's so politically active? She has a lot of voices in her head that tell her that's not right, stand up for yourself. She's been in trouble many times. She had to go and turn her shirt inside out. But there's a picture of a little cat on it too, so it's like, yeah, it's cute. Oh, it's a kitten. Moving on. Okay. So so now, what happens though? Remember we talked, did I show you the video about forming a group? What do you need to form a group? A lone nut.